Okay team, welcome back to the studio. We're out at the my local four-wheel drive proving ground, so it's a really good place here to run four-wheel drive training and things like that. So, and really good spot to test some equipment, which is what we're going to do today. So we've got sent some gear from VicOffroad. We're going to go through my initial impressions. We're going to go through some winching and compare that gear to some of the other gear I've got here and some of the pros and cons. If you haven't met Pepper, this is Pepper, so come on. So she's going to give me a hand today. I didn't bring Sam's with me, he's banned from the bush. He's got a habit of chasing kangaroos down and bringing back other dead animals. So firstly, I just want to thank everyone who's subscribed to the channel so far. It's been awesome watching the channel grow from zero to what it is now. It's nothing big at all at the moment, obviously, but it just keeps growing, and yeah, it's been awesome to watch. So if you do like the content, subscribe to the channel. If you like the video, click the like button for me. Helps the channel grow even more, and yeah, we'll crack into it. Come on. I don't know what this is. This strap's rated to, but I know this recovery point's 8 tons, so hopefully she won't break off, eh? Okay, so in the interest of full disclosure, there's no affiliation between myself and VicOffroad. Yeah, so I don't work for them in any way. They don't sponsor this channel, and I don't get any kickback from anything you purchase from them. So, but I will leave a link to their website with this particular package they sent out, and then you know, if it suits you, you can jump in there and grab whatever you like. They do have a big sale at the moment for end of financial year, like everywhere else is at the moment as well. So one thing that's important to me on this channel is that all the information I give you is factual. It's not influenced by companies, and that's kind of like going to be my little pledge to anyone who watches this channel. I'm not going to be bought by different companies, so I'm not going to say a product is really good if I genuinely think it's garbage. So they put no conditions on this. They've just sent it out to me and said, go for your life. So what I am happy to say though is there was a few criteria I was looking for when I first got this little package, and I'm happy to say that there was like 4 or 5 things I was specifically looking for, and I'm happy to say that the gear does fit that criteria I was looking for a good review. So we'll crack into the Snatch ring straight up first of all. So the first thing I looked for when I pulled this out of the packet was this recess for the rope. So now it's a really nice curved surface there for the rope to sit directly into. It won't move laterally, but it will also give it a nice surface area for it to over the ring itself, which is really important. So there's going to be less friction loss, and just a good wide surface area for the weight to be distributed over the ring itself. And one thing that's particularly important is that there is no lateral movement with the rope in the snatch ring. So some of them have a very squared off. I think the drift one has a really squared off. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's got a really squared off sort of recess in there, and which means that the rope can, unless it's a really thick rope, it's going to be able to move laterally in that recess, and that's going to start putting side loads on your snatch ring. And that's when things might get a little bit risky in terms of winching. So yeah, good nice curved recess for the rope to slide into. Looking for, again, inside here is a nice smooth surface. It's a nice round surface. It's not squared off or any of that sort of stuff, which could compromise your shackles. And if I was going to be a little bit picky with it, just in regards to the working load, they've recorded it as working load 8 tons or 8,000 kilos. I would like to see working load limit, because that's the correct terminology. So if you're not aware, there's 2 rating systems that we use in this industry. So there's working load limit and braking strength, and they're 2 different rating systems. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But that's probably one little thing I'd be picky about, is I'd just like to see the proper wording on there, working load limit, not just working load. But it's safe to say that 8,000 kilos working load limit is a working load limit, not a minimum braking strain. Usually, so minimum braking strain is basically where it brakes at, and in the four-wheel drive industry, a working load limit is usually half of the braking strain when it comes to that sort of stuff. So a bit different with hard shackles there. That's from rigging industry. They use a safety factor of 5 or 6, so a little bit different system. I'll talk about that a little bit later though. So okay, so this is the soft shackle they sent out. It's rated to 14,000 kilos, so that is a minimum braking strain. So the safe workload limit will be half that. Sorry, not safe workload, that's the old term. So workload limit will be half that. So about 7 tons is your workload limit for this. Okay, so it comes with a nice protective sheath over it. The only thing to remember with the protective sheaths is that when you're checking your equipment for serviceability, you just got to make sure you actually take the sheath back and have a good look at it at both ends. I think you probably can take that off, but I won't take it off. It's probably hard to get back on. It's got some heat shrink over the sort of the base of the knot here, just to stop that fraying, which is good. Yeah, so haven't really identified any issues with that. The kinetic rope here. I'll leave the stats up on the screen too, so you can. And we'll go some of the pros and cons with the ropes and the straps. I've got straps here as well, and also some hard shackles and a more conventional pulley block as well to compare this stuff too. So what I'll do is I'll get some of my older gear out of here, and we'll do a bit of a comparison. Some of my gear's it needs to be updated, and I'll discuss why it needs to be updated. I always keep my stuff, all my recovery gear, stored in this box up here. It's a good spot to keep it because it's easy to get to in a recovery, especially if your car's bogged down a bit, because you don't have to climb up so far to get it, and especially if it's in some of those really deep, those tracks like at Palm Creek or in Cape York, where there's really deep cutouts in the track. It's quite messy up here. It makes it easy for people to get onto your roof and just get your stuff out, because you can't even open the doors in those situations. There's another shackle, and I've lost my snatch block. That's alright, we'll just talk about them. But what we'll talk about just the pros of these things is, firstly, they're not going to, they're only rated to 8 tons, okay, I say only, but I've never seen or heard of one of these breaking apart or exploding under any kind of load. I guess theoretically it's possible, but I've never heard or seen it happening. My other snatch block, just a conventional snatch block, they can fail. And they tend to fail, and I'll sort of demonstrate on screen a bit after when I get back home. But they tend to fail by the lateral loads that can happen. So if you were to, especially shock load your winch for some reason, and there's some sort of lateral movement in there, you can shock load that snatch block, and they'll burst apart laterally as opposed to because they're just not designed to take those sorts of side loads. Whereas these aren't going to explode. Highly unlikely that would ever happen. The downside with these is that there's a little bit more friction loss with them, but we're talking 2 to 3% or something. It's not very much at all, but there is a bit more friction loss with these snatch rings, and you can't use them with a steel cable. So shackles. Now, I'm not going to do a comparison between these two because they're two completely different purpose pieces of equipment. So and they're rated completely differently. So with regards to the rating, so this is rated to a minimum braking strength of 14 tons. All right, so that's where you can expect the shackle to break. Okay, at 14 tons. It's safe. Its working load limit as per sort of normal four-wheel drive industry is half that. Okay, so that would be 7 tons. Now, shackles come from the rigging industry. They use a different, so their rating, all right. So this one is 3 tons, so 3.25 tons. Now, that is the working load limit. So you'll see on there, I won't bring up close to the camera, but believe me, it says WLL 3.25 tons. Okay, so workload limit 3.25 tons. Now, the safety factor for this rigging equipment is either 5 or 6 to 1. So that means that you can expect this to break at 5 or 6 times that WLL. Okay, so anyone who thinks that these are stronger than hard shackles doesn't know what they're talking about. The hard shackle is much, much, much stronger. The danger with these is obviously if they become a projectile, and that's where they become an issue, is that they aren't going to break. The issue is whether these go flying or not. If this goes flying, it's going to take your head off, literally. If this goes flying, you're probably going to get a black eye. And I have seen there's been quite a lot of deaths in regards to these sorts of things flying around recovery. So you really do need to be careful. But when we set the winch up, I'll show you, I'll explain to you the safest way to do it to avoid heavy things flying around. So yeah, they're two completely different ways of, or completely different applications. Now, where these do reign supreme is when you're joining two straps together. That's where they're awesome. If you're joining straps with two snatch straps or with one of these, you're an idiot. You really are highly likely going to cause some serious damage to equipment or get people seriously injured or killed. Don't do it. One con with these soft shackles is just the limitations of what where you can actually use them. So you got to remember that this one's probably not so bad because there is a bit of a beveled edge there, but on the front of my truck the recover points are quite sharp, so you definitely can't use that. You're restricted to using a hard shackle at the other end, but the hard shackles are stronger and you're probably better off using the hard shackle anyway. Okay, so the Kinetic Rope, okay, that's one. Again, the brand is Fireryred that VicOffroad have sent out. This is my old ARB Snatch strap. So look, this thing's way past its use by date. Okay, it's been used plenty of times. There's not too much fraying on it. It's actually in pretty good condition, but ARB says that this is only really good for 10 snatches. And now that, whether that's true or not, 10, that seems like a bit low. That might be them just saying, look, not our problem if something goes wrong. I've never obviously had an issue with this one. It's never come close to breaking, but I've always taken care of it, and I've also been quite careful when I'm conducting any kind of snatch recovery. I don't put too much load on it. I think the advantage of these older ones is they pack up nice, and they're quite light, and they pack up nicely into a nice, they roll up nicely, and they're easy to store. And I do quite like the way they like these ends on them. They slot nicely into hitch pin receivers and things like that, and they're just easy to work with. The downside is that obviously you're limited in the number of uses you've got with them, whereas the Kinetic Ropes, to my understanding, I haven't seen anything to say they've got limited uses. But now the actual effectiveness of these is compromised if they get wet. Now like probably in most situations, maybe in a lot of recovery situations, you're going to be in mud and things like that, and getting your snatch strap wet's not going to be obviously ideal. So that's just something to do with those. Whereas my understanding is that these Kinetic Ropes don't have that issue. Now I did try and fit this into my hitch pin earlier on, didn't go in there too easily. You probably could get it in there if you really tried, but it's going to put too much of an acute angle on that, or acute radius on that, and it's just going to put unnecessary strain on it. So I just don't advise using a hitch pin like you can with a snatch strap. You'll have to put use either a proper recovery hitch to go in there, or a soft shackle to go in there, if you can fit the soft shackle in there. Again, not advisable though, because you've got these sharp edges and they can damage your straps and things like that. So yeah, probably best off just getting the hitch receiver recovery hitch to go in there. In my case, I've got these recovery points. I'll just use a equalizer strap and just put that straight through, and then go from there. Right, another downside to the Kinetic Road is it's a bit heavier and it just doesn't pack down as nicely as the Snatch strap. But I think operationally the Kinetic Rope's better in every respect. So there's probably no real need for Snatch straps anymore, provided you've got the right equipment to actually use this. So what we'll do is we'll go and set up the winch. We're going to do a double line pull, and as I set up it, I'll explain why I'm setting it up the way I am and why I'm using the equipment I'm using. So yeah, we'll crack on with that. Okay, the first thing you want to do is, when you're conducting recovery, is get yourself conducting a winch recovery is a nice stable platform or anchor point to winch from. So I've chosen this tree because it's not too wide. I'll explain why in a second, but obviously it's got to be nice and strong. Ideally, want to mount the recovery, your tree trunk protector as low as possible, just to get a nice sort of firm base. Sometimes you might have to mount it a little bit higher just to get the winch cable off the ground, but yeah, try not to go too high. When you're setting up your cable, when you're setting up your tree trunk protector, if you can get it around, it's important that you use both ends of it like that. And ideally, you want the tree trunk protector to be, or the straps to be, as parallel as they can. And the reason being is, if you've got a big wide tree and the ends meet sort of like that, if you imagine if there's going to be a failure in the middle, they're going to come flying out laterally, and then you're going to have projectiles, bits of steel flying left and right of your actual your recovery. So if you can keep that nice and parallel, if something breaks here, like say your winch rope, there should be a nice direct vector to the tree. It just hits the tree and just drops to the ground. One more thing I forgot to mention is that's the way your strap should be set up. Okay, now if you do it like this, which is a common mistake, and to be honest I've done it myself, you're selling yourself short half of the strength of the actual strap. So yes, it's rated to 6.5 tonne, but if you're using both ends of it, I won't go into the physics of it, but believe me, you've got double the strength essentially. So you've got 6.5 tonne, that gives you 13 tonnes of strength by holding both of those. Trust me, it is. Now, in order to do a double line pull, all we need now is our soft shackle and our snatch ring and our winch rope, which we're going to get at now. Alright, so what you can do is you just need to release the clutch. Now, I don't use gloves using Dynamo rope, and the reason being is that I just find I get a bit more dexterity without gloves, and it's less likely things are going to get jammed in the winch especially. So if it's steel cable, I use gloves because it tends to fray and you end up stabbing your fingers, and yeah. But with winch rope, synthetic rope, I don't use gloves. So what you can do is, you'll see that I'll leave my hook attached to the to this shackle. It's in the bottom of the bull bar, and I'll just pull this out. got enough line. Hopefully that's enough. It probably isn't. Alright, make sure, don't do what I just did, make sure you flip up your, if you've got one, flip that up so it doesn't destroy your rope. Engage your clutch again, and then we'll set up the snatch ring. Alright, so you can chuck your rope in the snatch ring like that. Like I said, this one's good, it's a nice snug fit, nice round fit, and it's not going to move laterally in there. Get your shackle through both of the eyes of the tree trunk protector. Now there's a lot of hoo-ha on the internet about where you should put the knot. I've researched the hell out of it, and I don't think it really makes any difference. I've seen them snapped, like under testing, every single time I've seen a shackle break, it's usually the most acute part around the knot, or an acute part up here, which is, I mean, that's not less likely to snap because it's nice round sort of radius there. But generally speaking, if they're going to snap, it's usually this tight section here when that's really under load. I don't think it makes any difference. There'll be people out there that say it does. I just don't think it does. Okay, so let's just discuss safety for a sec before we put some tension on the winch. So we've got 6.5 ton, 14 tons with a shackle. Now that's what we want to be our strongest part of the recovery, or the recovery system. If this was to be a weaker part, so say for example this shackle was worn out or wrecked, or you made the mistake of putting one of those fuse shackles on there. I don't know if I'm a big fan of that term. If you made the mistake of doing that and something breaks here, then there's a significant risk of this snatch ring becoming a projectile and firing back at the driver. But if this doesn't break, this can't break, and your weakest link is the rope, then, and the rope breaks, at least you know that's just going to fly and hit the tree and just drop to the ground. Okay, make sure you put a damper on there. I honestly think they're useless. Every single time I've seen them tested, they just do basically nothing. But in the event that something was to fail here, it may help stop things coming flying back. But every time I've seen them, they just pretty much do nothing. So anyway, we'll get the winch powered up and get it on some tension, and we'll do some winching.
Okay, so normally you would run a winch for about 30 seconds on and a minute off just to keep the equipment cool. But in this scenario, I ran it all the way up the hill, dragging the brakes of the Jeep just to try and get as much heat in the equipment as we could. Once I got to the top, I reversed the winch back down and then winched it back up again, just to try and get again more heat into the equipment, but it held up really well. So yeah, no issues with the Fireryred gear.
Alright, so tension off that one. I think being a new shackle, they're hard to they can be hard to get undone. Right. So there's no heat build up at all in either of the components, and if there was, it's already dissipated. There's a so you can see there where the pressure's been put on the shackle, and same at this end. That's why it's important to peel back the sheath there, so you can inspect it underneath, make sure everything's all good. But as you can see, that's where the pressure was from the snatch ring itself. And but yeah, all good. Well, that's the snatch ring and soft shackle tested out. Now to test the kinetic rope, and I'm just thinking of a way we can test that out here today. Come on, come on. Yes, Lee. Come on. Come on. Come on. You gotta pull more than that. Hopeless. Okay, so we'll do some proper testing with the kinetic rope in some upcoming videos. We're actually going out this weekend, so maybe we'll be able to give it a run then. But from Pepper and I, we'll see you on the next one. One other thing, so just make sure if you like the video, hit the like button. If you like the channel, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, we'll see you on the next one. All you had to do was pull the rope. I needed to test it out, make sure we can run.